back for math, day 2. So welcome back, Sammy's here with us. So for the lesson 1, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answers that you should have had. So remember that first page 405 is always kind of your interpretation of what you think common denominator is. You should have something that says that two fractions that share the same denominator would be the definition. And here's my example: 2/3, 1/3, and 3/3. Hopefully you remember 3/3 means it's a whole. So they all have the same denominator, but they have different numerators. And this is where we're going to be comparing using the numerators and the denominators in the next lesson. All right, so it's the same rule as always for number 2. If you have the 2/3 times something is going to give you 10 question mark. So if you want to get the answer, you have to do whatever you do to the top, you have to do the bottom using the same number. So here I use 5/5, which is a whole, and that gives me the 10, and then 3 times 5 would be 15. Next to it you saw 2/5, and they gave you the bottom number, 15. So then you have to look at, okay, 5 times what will give me 15? 5 times 3 will give me 15. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do the same exact thing to the top. So 3/3 again is a whole, so I'm multiplying 2/5 by a whole, and I'm using 3/3. So 2 times 3 is 6. So now we have 2/3 is equal to 10/15, and 2/5 is equal to 6/15. So we can compare them because they have the same denominator. So 10/15 is greater than 6/15. So that also means that 2/3 is greater than 2/5. Number 3 on the back, compare 3/4 and 3/6. So number 3 is usually your answer. Number 4 is checking your work. So I gave you 2 different ways to do this. First, I said illustrate, and the question was who drank more juice? So you could draw a picture. 3/4 is greater than 3/6. And also, if you remember, 3/6 is equals to a half. So 3/4 is definitely bigger than a half. So your answer should have been 3/4 is greater than 3/6, or 1/2, because it is 1/2. If you didn't want to draw it because you don't feel like you're accurate when you're drawing like me, you could do cross multiply. So remember, you multiply the numerator of one number times the denominator. So 3 times 6 is 18, and whatever numerator you're using, that's where you put that number. And then numerator of 3/6 times the denominator of 3/4, which is 12. So we know that 18 is greater than 12, so 3/4 must be greater than 3/6. Just 2 different ways on how to do that. Okay, that was your math homework, pages 405 and 406. Again, I'm going to tell you, it's your choice to do the work, but when you come to the assessment, if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be telling for me that you didn't do your work. All right, so today's lesson is using common denominators and numerators to compare fractions. So we kind of did a little bit of that in the lesson. I just wrote the reminder up here to remember that whatever you do to the top, whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top using the same number. So the first thing we need to do is to review multiples, because we're going to need that in the next part of the lesson. I'm just going to scoot around here to the other side so I can write, since I am right-handed. So we need multiples. We need to know our multiples. I've been telling you guys that for a while: multiplication facts and multiples. And remember our little signal that factor times a factor equals the multiples. So when we're talking about multiples, we're not talking about the 2 numbers you multiply together to get the answer. We're talking about the answer when you take 2 factors and multiply them together. So we always say, if we did multiples of 5, it would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on. So let's just practice that with the numbers 2 and 6. So if I'm doing 2, my multiples would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We're just going to stop at 10. All right, if I'm going to do multiples of 6, I'm going to count by 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3, 18. 6 times 4, 24. And 6 times 5, 30. All right, so now I'm going to look at what are the common multiples that these 2 numbers have in common. So I look here and I see, oh, they both have 6. They don't have 8, 12. No, they don't. But let's go a little bit further on 2, because I want to make sure you see that a lot of times they have more than one. So if we went to the next one, we would have 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay, because remember we're counting by 2s or multiplying by 2. Now we look at it and look, they both have 12 and they both have 18. Okay, so their common multiples would be 6, 12, and 18, depending on how far you were going up. Now, why do I need this? How is that going to apply to finding common denominators and numerators and comparing them? Well, we're going to do something really easy, and we're going to start with a 10, because we know we don't really have to list the multiples of 10. We know they go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So say I have these two numbers. I have 2 hundredths and 8 tenths. Oh my gosh, I am not going to make a bar graph, or not a bar graph, but a bar line up to 100. I'm not going to split a circle into 100. That is going to take me forever, and it is going to be not very accurate at all. 10 would be kind of difficult too. So we've got to find another way to do it. We can cross multiply. That is one way. This is another way that you can do it. So what I'm going to do is I want to make these two denominators the same so that I can compare them. Now this is the bonus that Gracie gave you the hint on the day 1 lesson if you got to watch the videos. And for now I'm going to be loading those videos onto my YouTube channel, because in Microsoft Teams that the sharing the stream doesn't always work and come on right away. So you should be able to just go to my YouTube channel, and if you join it, you'll be able to go on there and see my math videos. All right, so when we're looking at this, we want to make these the same. Now we're not going to go smaller. We can't make 100 into 10, can we? If I have 100 of something, I can't change it into 10. But I can make 10 into 100. So the 2 hundredths is going to stay the same. We don't really need to do anything with that. Okay, but what we're going to do, because we want to compare them, right? And we're going to look at this, and we're going to say, okay, 10 times what is going to give me 10? And hopefully you all thought, well, Mrs. Swin, 10 times 10 will give me 100. Great. Now, thing here is that you have got to say, if I'm going to make the bottom, okay, into 100, I have to multiply it by 10. And this is where that saying that we come back to, whatever you do to the bottom, you need to do the top with the same number. You cannot do a random number in there. So if I'm going to multiply this by 10, I have to multiply this by 10. And 8 times 10 is 80. So now I can come over here and I can write, okay, 80 hundredths. Now we don't need to do anything to this one again because it's already got the 100. So now I'm looking at this and I go, okay, well, what's bigger, 2 hundredths or 80 hundredths? Well, obviously 80 hundredths is bigger. So then you're going to do 2 hundredths is less than 80 hundredths. If we went back and cross multiplied to check our work, we would have found out that 10 times 2 is 20, and 100 times 8 is 800, and again, 8 tenths is bigger. These are just different strategies. I always give you more than one, so you have different ways to solve things. So let's look at one more example. All right, so here's a word problem. Mel's tomato plant is 8/12 of a foot tall. His pepper plant is 3/4 of a foot tall. Compare heights of the plants by using greater than, less than, or equal to. All right, great. So our first step is we're going to compare these numbers, 8/12 and 3/4. Now, again, you could just do the cross multiplication to figure it out. You can draw a picture. I don't want to draw it into 12s. I don't know about you. But you can also use what I just taught you with the common denominators. So how do we do that? The first step is to find the common denominator using your knowledge of multiples. So again, here we're going to list our multiples of 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And we're going to list our multiples of 12. 12, 24, 36, 48. Now I can stop way before then, because what I want to look for is the lowest common multiple that they share. And if you look here, 12 is the lowest one. Now, if we kept going, we might find another one that they share. I believe they would share 48. Okay, because 12 times 4 is 48, so 4 would be over here times 12. All right, but we don't want the highest. We want the lowest common multiple, or sometimes they say the lowest common denominator. All right, so if we have the lowest, then our second step is use the lowest multiple and follow the rule of top to bottom. Again, we don't need to do anything with the 12. okay? So 8/12, we have to figure out if it's less than, greater than, or equal to 3/4. All right, well, how are we gonna make 4 into 12? We gotta multiply by 3. That gives us 12, because we wanna have the same bottom denominators to compare them. If I do it to the bottom, gotta do it to the top. 3 times 3 is 9/12. So now we are comparing 8/12 and 9/12. Which is bigger? 9/12, right? Would you rather have 8 of the 12 slices of pizza or 9 of the 12 slices of pizza? I'd like to have 9. I love pizza. All right, so this tells us that 9/12 is bigger than 8/12, and 3/4 is equal to 9/12. So there's our answer. So let's check our work. 8 times 4, 32. 12 times 3, 36. Bam, we are correct. So if you want to use the cross multiplication as a check, that's awesome. Or if you want to use the denominator as a check, really remember it's always just getting to the same point. Remember, you're going to go to Chick-fil-A, you might go different directions, but when you get there, you're going to get chicken. Okay? Final thing. So I know this is difficult, but when you guys you go onto your iReady, Maya found out under mine it says class resources, but on yours it's going to say bookshelf. So you're going to go to the bookshelf to print out your pages. You don't have to print them out. You can just do the work in a notebook because you'll be able to see them. I know not everyone has printers. I wish you guys could have went home with your books. All right, so your homework after doing this, your practice pages are pages 411. I wrote up there bookshelf to remind you, and 412, so the front and back. You're going to see here that you're looking at some comparing 1/5 and 2/12. So you're going to have to do your multiples, list your multiples, or cross multiply. But they're looking here for what are you going to multiply to get that answer. And then down here you've got some true and false. You're going to have to look at them each and decide if this is 2/3 is really greater than 5/6. 4/10 is really less than 4/5. If 70 hundredths equal to 7/10. So this is your homework, okay? So if you have any questions, go to the math channel when you start working on this and ask me the questions there. And please, you have a channel for chatting. You have your general channel where I put the announcements. Please be checking the announcements. A lot of the questions you ask, I answer on the announcements. The chat room is for you to chat, but the math, science, and reading channels are for questions only about those subjects. I really need you to keep it like that because that way we don't have messages everywhere. All right, have a great day, good luck, and email me with any questions on the channels. Have a great day, bye.